Sam Darnold was announced to have a broken scapula. Does this rewrite the narrative on his poor Week 9 Patriots performance? This is Dr. David Chao, ProFootballDoc.com. Subscribe at YouTube for all these videos to be notified. You judge for yourself. There's no question Sam Darnold had a poor performance in the Week 9 contest against the Patriots. You can see here that Ian Rappaport announced after 2 days of testing, exams revealed a fractured scapula, and he's going to miss several weeks, and that's correct. 2 days of testing to figure out a scapular fracture sounds unusual, but it is a funny shaped flat bone that sometimes doesn't show up on x-rays with a fracture. You need an MRI or CT scan, sometimes of more than the shoulder, but of the shoulder blade itself before you can see it. There was also an announcement of a incomplete fracture. And what does that mean? Incomplete shoulder blade fracture is announced here. That I'm not sure what that means. Is it a cortical break? I mean, incomplete fracture kind of is like slightly pregnant, incompletely pregnant. It doesn't make sense to me, but it probably means a non-displaced fracture or a unicortical fracture. That's what I interpret to mean. Something that he was able to tough out and play through. The Panthers believe the injury happened in the second quarter. His stats before the second quarter hit were not good. His stats afterwards were not good. And he did throw 3 picks after the hit. But when was he actually injured? You judge for yourself here. Here's the hit on the second quarter of the game, the only time he really gets hit. And he does get hit on the right shoulder and or shoulder blade area. And you can see the hit there. Versus, let's take a look at where he was hit in the Week 8 game and knocked out of the game near the goal line on the red zone play. Here, if we play the video, he's running along the goal line and he gets hit hard enough in the shoulder that he gets a concussion. And you'll see it's a helmet directly to the outside of the shoulder. Now, admittedly, that's not the shoulder blade, but you can see it's a very violent hit. Helmet first to the shoulder to the point that it jars his helmet off and he gets a concussion either from the hit or when his head hits the ground. You judge for yourself. What's the more violent hit? The Week 8 hit or the Week 9 hit? I would argue clearly the Week 8 hit. His stats before the Week 9 hit in the second quarter were 3 for 5, 22 yards, with his longest pass being 13 yards. Post-hit, he was 13 for 28, 150 yards, 3 interceptions, 1 sack. Longest pass was 33 yards. I'm not trying to say anything about the medical care at all. I'm saying, does this change the narrative of Sam Darnold? And what I mean by that is, if indeed he suffered the fracture in Week 8 and it went undetected, and with limited or very little practice, he played through with this injury, taking a couple shots on it, and indeed there was a crack or broken scapula, maybe that changes the narrative of his very poor performance. Maybe kudos for his toughness to try and play through instead of blame for throwing 3 really bad interceptions. Who knows? Let's find out more. But to me, based on the velocity, the force of the hit, it likely was Week 8, went undetected, and he continued to play through Week 9, and further testing after Week 9 reveals the fracture. He's going to completely heal. Don't be surprised if he goes on injured reserve. It's a minimum 2 weeks, could easily be 4-week injury. It's going to heal well without surgery. But the question here, and you judge for yourself, looking at both hits, does Sam Darnold, should he be lauded for being a tough guy playing through the Week 8 scapular fracture, playing all of Week 9? Or was he injured in Week 9? Thanks for watching. This is Dr. David Chao, ProFootballDoc.com.